Hello, and welcome back to the Bix Beiderbecke Museum. With today's video, we reach the end of our story. The first year with the Whiteman Orchestra had taken a toll on both Bix's physical and mental health, and it had led to comfort drinking. In November of 1928, Bix collapsed for the first time during a performance. For a year, Bix would attempt to work for Whiteman while taking time to recover, but his progress would be stalled by reoccurring bouts of pneumonia. During his efforts to recover, Bix faced unexpected tragedy as well. Longtime friend Don Murray had gone out to California to work in the band of a movie by the name of Is Everybody Happy? It was an apt title because by the tone of the telegram he sent to mutual friend Howdy Quicksell in the middle of April 1929, Murray was having the time of his life. Mere weeks later, however, they would get far different news. Don Murray died in a pedestrian accident at Curbside. The news left Bix stunned and without one of his oldest friends. During Bix's recovery periods, Whiteman proved how compassionate a bandleader he truly was. Revealed in a letter to a historian 2 decades later, Whiteman wrote of paying Bix around $400 a week, plus more for his recording sessions. When Bix had gotten sick the first time, lasting 3 to 4 months, Whiteman continued to send him this weekly salary directly. When Bix collapsed again in September of 1929, this time during a recording session, Whiteman sent Bix back home to Davenport in an effort to help him recover. That time, Whiteman paid him half salary for 4 or 5 months, before he realized Bix would not be returning. It wasn't for a lack of trying. Bix's parents, in an effort to help, checked him into the Keeley Institute for alcohol treatment after he was sent home. At just 26 years old, Bix admitted to drinking an average of 3 pints of liquor a day and was found to be suffering from delirium and a nerve disorder in his legs. It was during his stay there that the stock market crashed and the Great Depression began. What Bix had saved from his good life with the Whiteman Orchestra was gone, wiped out, by the time he left the Institute. It was months of recovery for Bix, but he returned to New York and to freelancing by mid-1930. He was facing his weakness with a kind of tenacious strength. Steady work with a steady band was not an easy feat to achieve during the Great Depression. Work was tight, and freelance work was better than none at all. During that year, Bix worked with friend and arranger Bill Chalice to complete his final piano pieces, Flashes, In the Dark, and Candlelights. In September of 1930, Bix would take part in his final recordings, including a solo in old friend Hoagy Carmichael's Georgia on My Mind. In the same month, he had his final recording session under his own name, the Bix Beiderbecke Orchestra, where he recorded I Don't Mind Walking in the Rain. Once again, only a month later, and despite his efforts, Bix would black out, this time mid-solo, on a Camel Pleasure Hour radio broadcast. For the final time, Bix returned to Davenport to shelter and recuperate. In February of 1931, Bix once again found work after a period of recovery and a return to New York, this time with the Casa Loma Orchestra. He desperately needed the money, so while their tightly regimented style wasn't to his liking, he accepted their invitation. Within days, however, his alcohol consumption would get in the way, and Bix would again be without work. To make ends meet, he did college dates at Yale, Amherst, Princeton, and William College. In late June, he moved into a small apartment in Queens, and at the same time, with a little help, bought a Wurlitzer baby grand piano. It would be how his neighbors knew him. He spent most of his time secluded in the apartment, and was heard playing the piano even at odd hours of the night. On August 3rd, fellow musician Red Nichols met Bix at a bar. He noted that the 28-year-old had a hacking cough. On August 6, 1931, Bix was gone. He had died in his Sunnyside apartment of lobar pneumonia. Still touring with the Whiteman Orchestra, Tram learned of Bix's passing while in Chicago. "I've always been there for him," he said. "Why didn't he call?" The last few weeks of Bix's life are best pieced together through his final letter home to his parents and the unfinished one they found in his apartment. He had sent home the picture of a lovely young woman with that final letter. She was a 24-year-old by the name of Alice O'Connell, and Bix referred to her at the time as his future wife. In the unfinished letter found by his family, written they believed at the end of July 1931, Bix wrote, "By now you have Alice's picture. What do you think of her? We're together constantly." It appeared that Bix had found a companion in his final weeks, and it had been with her help that Bix's meager income from freelancing had been able to afford the Wurlitzer piano. The piano and Alice herself had been two notes of comfort in the days before his death. Inside of this case, we have items found in Bix's final apartment. The cufflinks and mouthpieces were found in drawers by his mother and brother. One of the mouthpieces is marked as a box 7, while the other is unknown. The cloth gig bag, on loan for the Putnam Museum, was how Bix carried his cornet between recordings and performances. He had grown fond of these cloth gig bags in his final years, according to other musicians he worked with. It once carried his Bach cornet, bought during his time with Goldcat. Bix was returned to Davenport to be laid to rest in the Oakdale Cemetery on August 11, 1931. People filled the chapel for the service at Hill and Frederick's mortuary. Some signed the funeral register that we have displayed here. Others, as seen in this photocopy of the inner pages, sent flowers. A notable name on the page is one Alice O'Connell, New York, the woman Bix had grown so fond of. Bix's piano, which Alice had claimed as the sole remaining owner after his death, was an almost completely unknown part of Bix's life until recent years. It was found decades after it had first left Bix's apartment by Dr. Albert Heim, who had spent considerable time and effort to track it down with not much more than its serial number to get him started. He has since graciously loaned the piano to our museum for display. We have placed it here, in this little area that can be seen from the beginning of the museum, in a small recreation of Bix's final one-room apartment. On one wall, we've framed Alice's portrait between the sconces that were once part of his apartment. Across the piano, on the other wall, Bix's own portrait looks back at her. The door has more mementos of Bix's final home. The doorknob, backplate, and peephole are all from his front door. Bix never got to record his final piano pieces, and the jazz world lost a promising musician well before he was done leaving his mark. But Bix Beiderbecke most certainly left a mark nonetheless. Paul Whiteman would later write, "Bix was not only one of the greatest natural musicians I have ever known, but also the greatest gentleman I have ever known. To me, there has never been a soloist like him." Please join us one more time as we return to the legacy of Bix Beiderbecke.